Well, hello, and the warmest of welcomes to this introductory episode of a new podcast that we're calling Not If, But When, for reasons which will, hopefully, shortly make some sense. My name is Lyndsey Conquest. I'm an independent celebrant. I'm based in Leighton Buzzard, and I mainly work within Bedfordshire and Buckinghamshire, with the occasional visit to Herts and Northants. Now, Kirstie, would you like to tell everyone where you're based?
I would. I am also an independent celebrant, and I am based on the border of Cheshire and Merseyside, mainly working across Cheshire and Merseyside, but also into Lancashire and North Wales and Greater Manchester too.
Nice. Okay.
Oh,
Oh.
Lyndsey, sorry. Can I get you to give us a little bit more info about you? Give us a little bit more of a description about who Lyndsey Conquest is.
Indeed. So, as I've said, I live in Leighton Buzzard with my two daughters, and my eldest is an adult, but still very much my baby. And I've got four cats as well, who all think that I am their housemaid. In 2020, my life turned very much upside down. And at the time, I was beside myself. But I look back now and see it as the most amazing opportunity to reinvent my life. Lyndsey Celebrant was born, and I really couldn't be happier and more fulfilled in the work that I do now. When I speak to people, they all expect me to say how much I love the weddings I
Mhm.
officiate, and I do,
Same.
of course. But there really is something magical and heartwarming about supporting and guiding a family through that last event, which truly celebrates the person that they loved. I feel that it's an honour and it's incredibly humbling, and I'm sure that you agree, Kirstie.
I do.
Now, I'm passionate about helping people to understand that the words death and dying and funeral are not bad, scary words. We
Yeah.
can use them, and death's part of life. Planning for it will not make it happen any sooner than it was going to. I'm also passionate about good wine, fantastic coffee. In fact, I'm a bit of a coffee snob, and I like long hot baths by candlelight. And I love forget me nots. I adore giraffes. I love Paloma Faith, watching Friends, and I like listening to the music by Tapao. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell. So, Kirstie, how about you?
That's lovely. I like you in a nutshell, Lynn. That's gorgeous.
Thanks.
Yeah, I lived on half in Cheshire, half in Merseyside, in a bit of a kind of no man's land called Boldheath. I live with my husband and my teenage daughter. We also have a very unhinged dog called Bing, and my daughter's cat Molly Nadirchik. I too had a weird 2020. I think there was something in the air for us, Lynn's. My life
Yeah.
too imploded slightly, and and then I found this calling, same as you did, and exactly the same as you. This is probably where we find our deep connection with one another. Is that I feel exactly the same about funerals. They are uniquely joyful, and I use joyful
Hmm.
advisedly because they're also extremely sad, but there is a
Yeah.
real purity and a real, I used to call it theatre, but it's more ritual, I guess, to a
Hmm.
funeral
Yeah.
that I think is like nothing else that we ever experience in our lives. So
And there's
I
Bing in the
am.
background.
Oh, could you hear him? I told you he was unruly.
Yeah, he's having his say.
Oh, honestly. Well,
Love him.
I am passionate, same as you, about the healing power of a really good funeral, and about encouraging people to talk about it, to discuss the rituals that they want at the end of their breathing years. You know, a very wise
Hmm.
woman, I think it might have been you, once told me that just like talking about sex doesn't make you pregnant, talking about death doesn't make you die. That's going to happen anyway. You are not
Exactly.
going to catch it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you're not going to catch it
Yeah.
from listening to this podcast. You're not going to catch it from looking us in the eye. It's, we're here to make it easier. It's
Yeah.
hard, but we can make it easier.
Mm.
Um, Other things that I am passionate about are chocolate. I don't have any
Who
snobbery about
isn't?
it. All chocolate, yeah, yeah, particularly a Freddo.
Oh.
Um, I love yogurt. I love trees. I'm obsessed with finding the perfect outfit. It's still not happened, but I keep trying.
Keep going,
And I
keep looking.
absolutely, yeah, vintage saves my life. Um, and I also adore the Muppets. So that's me
Who
in a nutshell.
doesn't love the Muppets?
I know, I
Do
know,
you
they
have a
bring so
favourite
much joy.
Muppets character?
No,
Which
I
is your
couldn't possibly.
favourite?
That's
You
like
couldn't
saying which is your
choose.
favourite child. No, that's why I've only got one child because of that. Because the indecision would kill me. No, it depends on the day. It depends on the day. Growing up, it was Rolf the dog. But no, not really. I love them all.
No favourite.
Um, shall we tell everybody how we happen to know one another? Because you're all the
Yes,
way on
let's.
the other side of the world where they talk different.
Yes.
And
Deep down south.
I know, but we found each other. Tell everybody where we found one another, Lindsay.
So we found each other on the residential part of our course when we were training to be family and couple celebrants.
We did.
I have got that right, haven't I? It was on that
Yeah,
course that
yeah,
we
yeah, yeah,
first met. Yeah.
yeah.
And just sort of I just think we were meant to cross paths on that day,
Oh, we
and I
were.
think there was a lot planned for us, and there's been lots of conversations and laughs and tears along the way,
Yeah,
hasn't there? But yeah, so that's
absolutely.
how we first met, in that
We
classroom of
did.
that hotel on our celebrant residential course. I do
Yes,
believe that we probably did. We get married on that day in a mock-up
I think we did.
ceremony.
I think we did marry
So
one another. Yeah, yeah. And I think
yes,
that
yeah.
I knew that you were mine. There were a lot of interesting characters on that course, shall we say?
Yes,
And I think
yes.
that I think that you really stood out to me. I remember the first interaction that we had was me tucking your label in the back of your jumpsuit. I remember doing that.
No surprise there. Did I still have the price tag in it? I don't actually remember.
You
It wouldn't
did, you
surprise
did,
me. I
you
did.
did. But I tucked it in, which I was really glad about afterwards because I thought, oh shit, if I'd have just like pulled it off, what if you were like planning on taking it back? So,
Oh, did
and
you
then I
think I was
thought,
one of those?
well, no, because I knew you were mine as soon as I met you. Yeah, we I think we were only put in the same group maybe once, and I remember the first time that I saw you present a ceremony that you'd written, and I remember thinking, oh, she's good, which I hadn't really
Oh,
thought. Well, I hadn't really thought it about some of the other people on the course. I was probably feeling a
yeah.
bit superior to that point. And then I thought, oh no, here's the competition. So I even more knew you were mine then. Yeah, I find that celebrants are interesting people. Like I feel
Yeah.
very much. Do you find this that you know you
Yeah.
meet a celebrant and you either think, oh, they're just going to be my best friend, or you meet one and you think, oh, it's the me show. And I know we all
Yeah.
have to be a little bit out there to do this job, don't we? But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, so that's yeah. There was another significant person on that course that we both felt the same about.
There
We should
was.
mention,
Yeah.
yes. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and I think I don't know whether other people have gone on to do much with it, but I know that you and I both are lucky enough now that it is our full-time jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went off and trained on our funeral one separately, didn't we? Which was a little bit
We
heartbreaking
did.
because you were
We
already
did.
booked on
But
yours.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I
and
was
then
already sort of doing mine.
yeah, and that was an extremely different week. I think it's fair to say. Um, but then here we are, and then we've really
Here
kind
we
of
are.
bonded more, haven't we, through the kind of
Yeah.
retrieval obsessiveness that we both have. Um,
Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's what came. It was obvious, wasn't it? We both did our funeral training separately, and
yeah.
very quickly we both were sending each other voice notes going, oh, I thought the weddings was where I was going to want to focus. I thought that
Yeah,
was going to be my full time.
yeah,
But there's so much of me that just loves this role as a funeral celebrant, and I get
yeah,
so much out of it myself. And we had such similar views, didn't we? And it was really comforting
absolutely.
and reassuring to know that we'd both gone in it from one perspective and ended up going down a slightly different path. And
Yeah.
although we love those
Yeah.
weddings and we adore the couples we work with, the funerals is just somewhere we've got a special place in our hearts, I think, for the funeral work that
Yeah,
we do.
definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it did surprise me, yeah, because I kind of thought I'd be like more of a naming celebrant. I thought that that's where my heart would lie more. Now I've actually only
Mm,
done one naming, um,
yeah.
and I'm not really sure I'll ever do one again, in all honesty.
Yeah.
So lots of weddings, but lots and lots and lots of funerals, and also lots of other work that comes from the funeral stuff. I know you have the same passion that I have about kind of the
Yeah.
community education side of things, that
Yeah.
people do not want to talk about this. And I suppose that's what we're trying to do with the podcast, really, isn't it? Encourage people to have a chat about these things. So what we're
Definitely.
going to do
I
with oh, go on, Danny.
No, I was going to say is I've noticed on social media when I look at sort of the insights on my reels, if I post a reel that's got wedding content, it gets
Yeah.
listened to and viewed for a lot longer. But if you start a reel that and you're talking about that funerals, death, dying, there's a definite correlation between how quickly people turn off that video. So I think
You're
it's about
scaring
one
people on
learning.
socials.
Yeah, we're so scaring them on socials. So yeah, I think it's a learning curve for us to make sure
Yeah,
that we get that approach right, and hopefully that's where we are today and the start of that. Get the
yeah,
approach right so that people actually
yeah.
feel that they can listen to us and do it in well, let's talk about why we're doing what we're doing. What is our podcast about?
Okay, so I think that there are a million myths about funerals which need to be thrown out of the window. I always say to the
Yeah.
families that I work with, there are no funeral police. They are not, there's no one coming to
Yeah.
check up on what you're doing. There's no one saying you're not allowed to
No.
do this or you can't do that. People don't know that. And I think that
Mhm.
the main thing that we need to do is bust that myth, really, and encourage
Definitely.
people to just have a think now. Because I don't know who said this, I don't know whether this was on our training, but I remember somebody saying that a funeral is the most expensive impulse purchase you will ever make. You would never spend that amount of money on anything else in your life
No.
without no, without going to Trustpilot or reading reviews or asking around. You would never go, oh well, my mum started shopping at the Asda in 1823, and that's where I shop. And that, but people do that with
Yeah.
funeral directors. They say, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
they're our funeral director. And very often people associate an experience they've had with a funeral director with the person who works there, and they might not be there anymore. So it's not necessarily
Yeah.
the business. So I think that that's
Mhm.
why it's really important for us to encourage that conversation, really.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
also think that we need to show people that we are normal. I know we're not that normal, Lynn's, really, but I think people need to see that, we are not stern. We are not, well, we're a
No.
bit rotund, but we're not particularly rotund. We're not
A little bit more this time of the year, it
a little
improves.
bit more. We are not those scary, whey-faced, stern men dressed in black. We are just normal people,
No.
like
Yeah.
everybody else,
Yeah.
and that there's nothing to
Absolutely.
be scared of in talking to us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else we feel
I
like we
think,
want to
you know,
achieve?
I think it's just I think no, I think what you've really covered, sharing our own experiences, maybe some funny
Yeah.
stories about things that we
There's
experience in
plenty of
our
those.
role.
Yeah.
There are plenty, plenty of those. And yes, not just the funny moments, but the special moments, and perhaps the times that
Yeah.
the moments that really have touched us and stayed with us.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
funeral that we do is special, isn't it? And it's special in its own
Yeah.
right, but there are definitely some that touch us in a completely different way and stay
Oh,
with us.
yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know,
And I think saying about funny stories, I think that discombobulates people a little bit when you talk about funerals, as though there's
yeah,
disrespect in that, or whether there's um a lack of of seriousness about what we're dealing with. Now, I don't know anybody
Yeah.
more serious about their work than me, than you. Like we
Yeah.
take it deadly
Yeah.
serious, deadly serious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if somebody has lived with laughter in their life, which most of us have, then it's
Yep.
a disrespect to them to not have laughter involved in the discussions of what's
Absolutely.
happening. Yeah, yeah. And I know that
Absolutely.
you feel
Yeah.
the same, and that's not about a disrespectful thing. And I always think that, there aren't, I don't particularly like the term celebration of life that much because I
I
think
don't.
even when, no, I think even
Mm.
when someone's lived to an absolutely ripe old age, there's lots of things to celebrate. There's things to celebrate at every funeral. Um,
Yeah.
but that, but calling it a celebration of life, I feel risks us taking the sadness and the seriousness and the tragedy out of it because that's there too at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's not a
Absolutely.
binary
I'm
thing.
so glad you said that because, yeah, totally agree with you. I think it's important to say that we're there to celebrate that person's life as well, but also there's the ritual and helping
Yeah,
everybody sort of process their grief, and there's a whole, yeah, there's one whole big process to it. And I think, and not every family, I've had one family recently, without going too much into detail, but they, so many people had said to them, but it's a celebration of their life. And the lady just said to me, but I actually don't feel like celebrating at the moment. I don't
yeah,
feel like
yeah,
celebrating. They've had an amazing life and I want to talk about that, but I don't feel celebratory.
yeah,
So I think,
yeah,
it's important. It is a funeral, but we can ask our families what, how they want to approach that, but make sure that
yeah,
we as celebrants, include those other elements that are really
yeah,
important to help them through that journey of grief and give them comfort and so on. I think
yeah.
it's, yeah, really
I think it's
important.
really important to say, and I'm really glad that that lady did say that because
Mm,
that's okay, isn't it?
yeah,
It's okay
yeah,
if you don't feel like
totally.
that. And I feel like the
Yeah,
use of the term celebration of life is a bit like if you're not doing that, there's something up. You've like
yeah,
it's not okay. That like you should be
yeah.
able to celebrate that. Well, sometimes you just can't, can you?
No.
And that's just it.
Mm,
Um, yeah. So, shall we tell everybody uh, why we came up with the title? Or let's say why you came
yes.
up with the awesome title.
Did I? Oh, I did, didn't I? Oh, I'm proud of myself there.
Yes,
I'd actually forgotten about that. But yeah,
I
do you
think
do
we
you
were
want
we were
to?
one bottle of wine in, but
We probably were. So, do you want to share that, or do you want me to go
yeah,
and?
can do.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we were away, weren't we, in the beautiful Cotswolds, and
yeah,
having a little brainstorm evening. Possibly there had been wine, and we were talking
possibly.
about. I'm particularly interested in, and I've voiced this a little bit on Lyndsey. I know she's interested in it too. About the language around death and dying and funerals. And I said to
Yeah,
her that I'd had that week, the experience I'd had lots of times before, whereby and it's always, I said this to you previously, it's always a very, very elderly gentleman. He's usually really smartly dressed. I find he
yeah,
often has tweed on. He often has a walking stick and he regularly
yeah.
looks plus 200 years old, I would say. And he comes out at the end of the service and comes over to shake your hands, which is lovely. I love it when people do that. He
Me
comes over
too.
very respectfully, shakes your hand, says something really positive about what you've done, and then says, if anything ever happens to me, I'd like you to do my funeral. Or if anything ever happens to me, and then said, you know. And so we were talking about that and having a small
Yeah,
laugh about the fact that very often it's older people who might say that, but also it's a nonsense for any of us to say, if anything ever happens to me, it's going to. Sorry to
yeah,
break it to you, sir, in your lovely tweed, but it's going to. So we talked about that, and then we were brainstorming ideas for doing the podcast, and you came up with not if, but when. So in a moment of like
indeed.
chef's kiss genius. So that's why we called it
Yeah,
that.
doesn't happen very often, but I'm pleased
Well,
it happened. Wine fueled.
Well, it was perfectly
So
timed. It was perfectly timed
yeah,
because some of the suggestions I was thinking of were not as good as that. Let's put it that way. So that's Where are we
which
going
is not
with this?
always the case. I think you do often come up with much more creative ideas than me. So
Oh, we both have
I'm
our
happy to
moment, I think.
take that one. So yeah,
I
so
was
not
very,
if but
very
when.
impressed. Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
you. Thank you.
And I think really
Uh,
what we're trying to do is that we've got this uniting factor between us that everybody else
yeah,
has got with us as well. It is the only universal experience. It is going to happen to us. Um, and
absolutely.
we're hoping that you'll eventually will win you over, wear you down, and you will see the universal appeal and listen to us talk about it all. Um, it's not going to be
Absolutely.
depressing. It's not going to be
No,
sad. There will be sad
how can
moments.
it be with us chatting away?
We're
We're not depressing, are we?
not depressing. No, we're not depressing.
No.
And and death is tragic. Like we have both experienced really tragic deaths in our
Yeah.
lives of people who have died in awful circumstances, who have died way too young, whose deaths
Yeah.
we probably aren't over and never will be
No.
over because they'll just live
No.
with us forever. We have
Yeah.
had that experience. So we are not we are not coming at this from a point of view of taking any of this lightly at all. Just trying to get people
Absolutely not.
to yeah to open up their minds to thinking about why it's important to start thinking about these things and the benefits that that brings because it's not about dwelling on it, it's just about making it easier for yourself and for everybody else that loves you.
Absolutely. Yeah,
So
totally.
would you like to tell everybody what our first proper episode is going to be called, Lindsay?
Yes. So, our next episode, or our first proper episode, we are going to be discussing what is a celebrant. Our title, what even is a celebrant anyway? And
A question I get asked
we're,
constantly.
yeah, yeah, yeah. How many times have you been called a celibate? Has that
Oh,
happened?
don't even. Yeah, or people have gone to say, "Oh, you're a," and then I can tell that they're pausing because the only word they can
Yeah.
think of is celibate. So different,
Yeah.
different thing. I've also been called a
Yeah.
vicar, been actually introduced to somebody as a vicar, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so we're going to talk all about that, what we are, how to find us, what we do, what we don't do,
Absolutely.
and that will be our informative first episode.
Indeed. Very, very exciting. So,
We
and
did
we'll
it,
obviously,
Liz.
yeah, I know. That's our first, that's our introduction. That's done. And we have our website as well, which people can look at, and eventually our podcast will be all put on there so everyone can go and have a look and listen to them, and we'll put snippets of videos and things from the recording as well. And yeah,
Yes.
that's it. First episode done. Well done, us.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. It's a shame it's
Yes.
lunchtime and we can't go and celebrate with anything other than a glass of
Exactly.
water. You
Exactly.
can have some posh coffee
Yeah.
though.
I will go and have some posh coffee, I think. Yeah,
Good.
definitely.
Glad
Too
to
early
hear
for
it.
wine on a Wednesday. Okay, so that's it. That's our introduction done. So until next time, episode 2, we will sign off and say bye to everybody, I suppose.
We will indeed. Yeah. And hopefully you can join us next time. And hopefully, yeah, we'll get to the point where we can have some lovely interactions and know what you think. And yeah, hear all your thoughts. So there you go. Time.
Wonderful.
Stay mortal.